And bear with me because I have some videos embedded in here, and he may have to start them from back there. We were playing with it this morning.
Okay, cool.
But again, my name is Wilson Mize. I'm with the Department of Health and Human Services in North Carolina. Steve had asked me to come speak about how we utilize well cameras, not only for enforcement action in North Carolina, but also to assist well contractors and homeowners. And to give you a little history, I feel lucky in North Carolina. We've had well construction standards since the early 70s. We've had certification of drillers since 2000, and we've had basically permitting and inspecting of all private drinking water wells since 2008. So when it comes to kind of comparing to some other states, I feel like we're kind of a step ahead of the game in how we look at these wells. Part of my job is to train registered environmental health specialists in every county. So all 100 counties in North Carolina have a person that's trained to inspect wells. We go out, we teach them how to witness a grout inspection, how to site a well. Our rules are very specific on how far you have to be from septic and other potential sources of contamination. We sample every new private well that comes in for bacteria and organics. We work closely with our epidemiology branch. We issue health risk evaluations based on the water sample results. So we're very active in private wells. So why do we have well cameras? Originally, when we started the program, we purchased them for enforcement action. Again, we have requirements on how much casing has to be in a well. I think the question came up maybe the first day, how do you find a driller that's going to do what they're supposed to? And that's how we ended up with these rules. Just like they said, every industry has bad apples, and we had wells that weren't grouted. We had wells that were contaminated. We had a very prominent legislator from down east that had contaminated wells, and that's why we have well permitting throughout the state. That's what it took. And in that same area where that legislation came from, they used to get on me because I would try to enforce regulations and grouting requirements, and they didn't want to enforce it originally until it affected them. So luckily we do have those rules. So we use the cameras to oftentimes verify casing depth. Not as big an issue anymore because we go out and we watch these wells installed. We watch them be grouted. And then I mentioned bacteriological contamination. That's both for not so much enforcement when it comes to the private wells, but we do have what's called the 1700 regulation. So that's another set of rules that address wells that serve regulated facilities. Most of them are going to be restaurants, some of the smaller daycares, some assisted living facilities that only have 3 or 4 people. So they're smaller facilities that do not fall under public water supply regulations, but they're a little more than a private well. So those have specific requirements for not having total coliform or E. coli in the well. They can be shut down. If they have E. coli, if they have total, they have to put treatment. So many of those we're looking for a permanent solution. So they may call us to come camera that well and see if we can install a liner to get rid of the bacteriological concerns. And then confirming that casing is seeded in consolidated rock. And I'll show you some videos of what I mean by that. So this is just a quick video where I'm showing a lack of adequate casing. So the homeowner believed that the well contractor had put in our state, it's a minimum requirement of 20 feet of casing. We have some areas that require more than that. We have kind of the Carolina slate belt that has arsenic where we try to case a little deeper. But as you can see from the depth meter on there, there's approximately 3 feet of casing in that well. So they put a piece in, put a little grout around the top, told the homeowner they had 20 feet of casing. And they had questions about that because they were witnessing some of the construction. So they called us. We go out and we confirm that there's not enough casing. So there's several options there, and that's another reason I like our regulations. I can either tell the well contractor, I can issue a notice of violation and give them 25 days to either abandon that well and drill a new one or fix the well. So in this case, they could remove the casing or they could install a liner. We'll give them options on how to fix this problem. And then on the other side of things, if we find that they're negligent and they're trying to do things that don't meet the regulations, they can be referred to the Well Contractor Certification Commission, and they can either lose their license, be suspended 30, 60, 90 days. So there's a lot of recourse we can take if they're not doing what they're supposed to. Okay, you can go to the next one. So this is just a photo. This is one where I had a homeowner that tried to have a repair on their well, and the well contractor was arguing he did so correctly. They were still having water quality issues. They installed a very deep liner which should have taken care of any total coliform problems. They called me, we went out and cambered the well. As you can see, at 153 feet, the joints were not connected. Our rules say that these liners have to be seamless, have to be glued together, and somewhere along the way, they either didn't glue it, or when they tried to pull it back out, they came apart. The next slide will show you at the bottom of this liner, you can go to the next one. It was also demolished at the bottom where they tried to force it in. So we have rules that say you cannot drive PVC casing. Galvanized casing, we allow that because they put a drive shoe at the bottom, they can force that in. But it was a well contractor that had good intentions, but they had come from the environmental industry. They were not used to dealing or repairing drinking water wells, so they didn't have the proper equipment to try to do these repairs. This one, they fought and fought. We cambered it, took them in front of the commission, and it took threatening to suspend their license for them to go out there and fix this problem. So they were able to remove it, properly install a liner, and now the water quality concerns are gone. This is just another example of one that we cambered. When I say, our rules don't say seeded and sealed into bedrock. So what we want to do is see that it's good, clean casing. It can't be cracked, can't be fractured. Many of our drillers will go ahead and set casing, call the county, they come out, inspect the grout, then they go back to drilling. This is one of those cases where as they're putting the drill bits back in, they tore up the casing at the bottom. You can kind of see on the left side. And that tends to be when we see those issues where there's a little water getting in that well that ends up causing bacteriological concerns. So this would be a case where we would also install a liner. This one it was an interesting case. It's one of my better drillers in North Carolina. Actually lives in the county I live in. But apparently there was some disagreement with the property owner, and they decided not to grout that well because the homeowner wasn't going to pay them. And one thing I've taught drillers, and this is one of the cases that I use, is go ahead and finish the well, worry about the money later. I know you're trying to get paid, but in this case, the woman that lives there had a daughter that was very ill. She was cleaning her nebulizer with this well water, and it sat ungrouted for almost a year before we found out about it, and she passed away. This well had E. coli in it, and that's, at this point, it's going to court. We don't know whether or not that is the culprit, what caused her death, but all signs are kind of pointing that way. So in the next video, you can see that's the probe I stuck in, and there was absolutely no grout. It was down gradient from several septic systems. All surface water was running off in this well. And so you can see they put it in the right area in the property. It was 60 some odd feet from a septic. It's far enough away from the house, but you can see a considerable amount of water leaking in around the bottom of that casing. And a lot of that ended up being surface water. It tested positive multiple times for E. coli. Again, she's cleaning basically equipment that she's inhaling, and they are assuming that she potentially inhaled the E. coli. Again, I would worry about, that's what I tell my drillers, I'd worry about getting paid later. Go ahead and do it right, and then you can always take them to court and try to figure it out after that because of cases like this. And occasionally we have had a few calls from local law enforcement. This is a case it's a field out in the middle of one of my more rural counties, but for one reason or another, law enforcement had reason to believe that a weapon used in a crime had been dumped in an old board well. Next slide, you'll see it's an open board well out in the middle of a field. Vegetation was waist high, so you could easily walk upon this and stumble inside of it. But they had us camera it. We did not find the weapon, luckily, but there's been one or two occasions where they've had private companies come out and inspect because they believed potentially a body could have been thrown in one. So they're good hiding places. So we have had to camera them. We had to assist. We have tried to get rid of a majority of the board wells in North Carolina because they're hazards. Most of you are old enough to remember baby Jessica, and I think it was 87. We've had 2 or 3 cases since our program started where children have fallen in board wells because we know they like to put a piece of wood over top, or in this case, nothing, and you could just walk right up to it. So if we have a property that has an old board well and it goes dry and we drill a new one, it's a condition of our permit that you abandon that well. So we try to get rid of them. Now for a drilled well that's properly constructed, if it runs dry, there's water quality issues and a homeowner wants to keep it, we'll let them keep it. because there's nothing wrong with it, and people don't want to get rid of their wells. Even if it's dry, they're like, it'll come back in a few years. I don't want to get rid of it. So, and homeowners are allowed to abandon wells, so that helps with some of the cost as well. But yeah, we've tried to get rid of a majority of the bored wells in our state. So again, I mentioned in the beginning that we started with well cameras for regulatory reasons. We wanted to be able to enforce our rules. But over time, it's kind of changed where a lot of the time, and there's only 2 people in the state that do what we do. The counties, some counties have cameras, but not many. But by us having cameras, I've seen a tremendous increase in well contractors that have purchased cameras. They've seen this is another side of their business. They're not just drilling wells, they're going out and cameraing wells, and where they call us to camera it, and then they're repairing wells. So it's another opportunity for the well contractors to make money as well. But we do use it for pump retrieval, and I'll show a video of that in just a second. Collapsed wells, we can't get a pump out. We're trying to figure out why. Corroded casing, and then again, water quality concerns. Now, I mentioned we have water sampling for private wells, but it's not a regulatory means unless it's the 1,700 wells. We can't do anything to a private well if it's got water quality issues other than make recommendations. But we get a lot of calls when it's fecal E. coli and wanting us to camera that well and try to find a fix. So this is a good video showing really a beautiful borehole as you're going down. It'll jump in just a minute, but this is one where as they opened up the well seal, there was no rope attached to the pump.
Or something. Some of these
you can mute that if you want. There shouldn't have been sound. And basically the pump broke off and dropped to the bottom of the well. So first what we did is we go in and we determine how deep it is. And then you'll see our drillers, and I think most of them are pretty good at devising devices to remedy almost any situation on site. So you'll see kind of a pump retrieval tool that they made on site with a few bolts and 160, I think, feet of PVC casing. But give it 1 second and you'll see that. You'll see the wiring in just a second. We're at 90 feet now and should jump ahead. So that's the tool they created. So the idea here is we go down with the camera, they go down with the PVC pipe, and then they try to get that wire to basically hook around that pipe. Some of these wells aren't deep enough for us to just leave that pump and all that material at the bottom. We don't want to have to set a rig up and drill it all out because we're going to cause a mess. So if we can get the pump out, we want to. And this can save a homeowner from having to drill another well. So you'll see he actually is able to twist it around that. And without the camera, it's hard to tell what you're doing. So, I mean, there's a lot of uses for these cameras. So we'll give it 1 more second. It'll show you. They basically have it wrapped around it, and then they just start pulling out one section at a time. We were able to save the pump, install a new pump, and move on. That was one well we did not have to condemn or abandon. Okay. So here's another one that we had, and we get a lot of pumps stuck. I've had some stuck where the well contractor unscrewed the bolt on the well seal and it fell through, and somehow it wedged between that pump and the casing. They tried to pull it out, pulled all the casing out of the ground. But this is one where they couldn't figure out why the pump was stuck. And this was actually after we had a very small earthquake years ago in the Wake County, kind of Piedmont area of North Carolina. So they were trying to remove the pump had died, and as we went down, you'll see there's a collapse right there. There's a huge blowout about 50 feet down. You can see it's not a real good borehole compared to the granite you were looking at a minute ago. So it collapsed. This is one we're not going to be able to do anything with. This is one they abandoned. They cut the pump off, filled it with neat cement, and had to drill a new one. But without that camera, you don't know why. So it's an extremely useful tool. And then this is just another example. I try not to camera a lot just because of total coliform, because we do see that in about 30% of all new wells in the state. But anytime it's E. coli contaminated and they've tried to disinfect properly and cannot get rid of that bacteria, then we'll come out and camera, because usually there's some surface water getting in that well, and you can see, I mean, we're at 63 feet here, but again, it's very jagged. It's not a very clean, smooth borehole like we like to see. So in these cases, that gives us the option to go in and put a liner. And when I go back to the 1700 well regulations, I mentioned E. coli is considered an imminent hazard. So if it's an imminent hazard, that restaurant must shut down that day, and you're talking about a lot of cost. So they have to repair or abandon that well. So these are cases where they're going to at least attempt, because we're talking less than $2,000 to put a liner in, usually in the $1,500, $1,800 range. So we'll put a liner in and resample, re-disinfect, and kind of go from there. And hopefully we're fixing it, because when we start talking about treatment for E. coli, they don't allow us to treat for a regulated facility. They will for total coliform, and that's continuous disinfection. They don't allow UV on that right now in our state. So when you start talking about total coliform, they want to fix it. They don't want to put a Band-Aid on it and put treatment, because they have to pay for operators, and it's constant maintenance. So if we can make a permanent fix to that problem, we try to. No video here, but this, again, I talked about bored wells. Majority of the bored wells we run into have bacteria problems. Obviously, they're shallow. Most of them are not grouted. We do have some that are properly constructed. I think we had one company left in the state that still occasionally put in bored wells, but I don't know that they're still doing that now. But this is an example. This is actually a coworker of mine that was buying property down east. Asked me to take a look at the well and see if it was a viable option if she builds a house on this property, because she had heard there was an existing well. You open it up, there's mole crickets. I don't know how well you can see it. There's staining showing where there's iron. It's shallow depth, so there's water leaking in even right there at the surface. There's actually a hole in the side of the casing. Our regulations require that there's no openings below 12 inches above land surface. So every opening must be, all well heads should be 12 inches above land surface. Then you go to the next slide, and when you stick a camera in it, you'll see the depth meter is not correct on here, but it was basically cracked. All the casing was cracked. It was about a 60 or 70-year-old well, and you can see water coming in through that crack. So they ended up abandoning that well because they wanted a safe water supply. We didn't even sample this one, but without that camera, when you go down 40 or 50 feet, it's hard to see any of this. But you can see a great deal of water coming in there. So the biggest part of using our camera are liner installations. And my last slide, the next one I'll show you, if you're not familiar with a liner packer system, we put a lot of those in. Again, most of them are because of water quality concerns. Some of them are because they're old wells that, again, didn't have to meet regulations because they were drilled in the 60s, 50s. So we do deal a lot with existing wells. And we recommend never to install a liner without putting a camera in the well first. Our guys used to, 20 years ago, would just assume, there's 30 feet of casing, so let's put in a liner in it, 60 feet. But, there's several concerns there. If I camera a well that's 250 feet deep and there's one fracture at 80 feet providing 2 gallons a minute, and that's it, if we put that liner below that fracture, they have no water. So that happened a lot in the past. So we camera that well. We make sure, if we know you've got 10 gallons a minute and we go down below that casing and we see a little trickle of water, kind of like you do in this one. And sometimes, it's just a few drops that you see. And that can be the difference in having no coliform in that well. So we do a ton of camera inspections. And again, it's not just for homeowners, it's for well contractors, it's for the counties. And we do realize that there are businesses out there trying to make a living, so we don't try to step on their toes. We have a good relationship with all the companies in North Carolina. We kind of go out to those that the county identifies as someone that can't afford to hire somebody to not only camera it, but fix the well. So usually we're saving them $400 or $500 because we don't charge anything. That's just part of our job. So in the next slide, I believe that's my last one, and then I'll field any questions. Just kind of shows you what the liner packer looks like. So you've got these ribs that are glued onto a smaller diameter, usually a 4-inch pipe that goes. It's essentially putting a brand new well inside of an old well. We do see people doing this when they have a ton of biofouling, especially on old galvanized casing that may be somewhat corroded, or there's just so much biofouling they can't clean it out. So they'll install a liner system. And we do permit repairs in North Carolina too. So we permit all new wells, all repairs, and anytime you open that well seal, unless you're replacing a pump, you're being permitted. We don't generally charge, there's a few counties that do, but we don't charge for repairs or abandonments because the thinking there is if you charge, then they're never going to let you know about it, and the homeowner or some jackleg is going to try to do it on a weekend. If we say it's free, and we may or may not come inspect it, then at least we have records of where that well was, how it was done. We have well construction records that are submitted to the state and the county. So that's our GW1 well log, and then we have GW30 forms, which are well abandonment. So we get all that information. The counties have that on hand, and we found it used to all come to the state, but the state, we don't have anything electronically yet and organized poorly. So now it's just easier, at least since 2008, for a homeowner to go to the county, and they've got it all on file based on property. Any questions about how we use well cameras? Thank you.
Very interesting stuff. So we do have a bunch of questions,
Okay.
looks like. So the first one is, how much does a camera like that cost?
Ours is a well view, and because obviously I work for state government, we're not going to buy the nicest camera out there. But I've had it. We bought 3 when we started, and I had it 10 years now and only had to fix it once. But I would say ours was less than $4,000. It's a well view. Now you can get a Laval. There's other brands that you can spend as much as you want, 10, 15,000. I mean, mine has a little command center that has a little monitor that opens up kind of in a Pelican case, so it's very easy to take. It's battery operated, so I can take it in the woods. I don't have to have power nearby, but it's very inexpensive for the amount of effort that we use to use it and the amount of money we've saved residents in North Carolina.
So I asked this question because the first video you showed, you were taking that down with a pump in it.
Yeah.
And so we get steel tapes without anything on the end stuck in wells because they wrap around.
I would say between myself and my counterpart in the mountains, we've had them stuck about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So one of it's not a requirement, but I would say on 99% of the camera jobs we do, we request that a certified well contractor be there. For one, we want them to open that well seal. We want somebody there that can disinfect that well when we leave. Many of your homeowners are not equipped to do that. Another item is that driller is likely going to be the one repairing that well. We don't repair them for you. The homeowner generally isn't equipped to repair them. So we want a driller there watching us video that well. And then if they need to pull that pump, they can. They'll usually bring a pump truck or the equipment necessary. And sometimes we have to pull that pump up with the camera itself.
Great. You answered another question too, I think. How many cameras? Okay, you already did. Yeah. How many do you have for? And are they centrally located or in district offices?
We have 2. I'm in the Raleigh area of North Carolina, so I cover 60 counties in North Carolina. My counterpart is in the mountains. He's west of Asheville, if you're familiar with North Carolina. So we have 2, but then we have also DEQ has 1 or 2 cameras through their public water supply branch, and occasionally we can access those as well. But yeah, I mean, I would say I do about 40 to 50 camera inspections a year. So we just travel throughout the state as needed and meet the county and the drillers and the homeowners and kind of go from there.
Will it fit in a 2-inch well?
Ours will not fit in a 2-inch well. And honestly, most of our camera inspections are for repairs. We're not repairing a 2-inch because when we're dealing with 2-inch wells, they're screened wells, they're at the coast, and they're shallow. So it's cheaper for them to pull the thing out of the ground and put a new one in than try to look at any issues.
So it asks if you disinfect before or after. Sounds like after.
Well, I disinfect the camera itself after every inspection because I don't want to cross-contaminate the next well. But by law, we have to disinfect any time that well seal is open. So if you remove that seal, no matter what you do, if you go in that well, it has to be disinfected.
Do you draw down? Do you draw? Keeps moving. With respect to the first well you discussed, all right, everybody stop hitting the buttons. It's driving me crazy. Now, do you draw down well first or after using the camera, or camera before or after?
We try to do it simultaneously. So I will open the well, and keep in mind, a lot of these older wells we have no records of. So they don't even know how much disinfectant to use because they don't know the total depth. They don't know what their column of water is. So we'll go down and we'll measure how much casing's in the well. We'll document that if we don't have records, because our rules require the well tags stay with that well for the life of that well, but they're not always there. So we tell them where their static water level is, and then we try to follow it down. So there's many wells because I want to see where the water's coming in. If the water's not being drawn down, I can't see anything. It's not worth my time. So we'll try to draw it down. Now, we do run into problems where the yield's too high and we can't pump it down, so it's just a waste of time. or the pump is so shallow we can't get past it, or there's torque arresters and we have to either remove them all before we can get the pump down or the camera down. So there are situations that we can't, but we do draw it down as we try to follow the column of water down.
So for individuals that would contract a professional for a downhole camera survey, what would the cost be?
Generally, I see anywhere from $350 to $500.
Are you grouting these liners for wells with bacterial?
Any liner installation requires neat cement or sand cement grout from the packer to land surface. So you're getting a full length grout now. If we put 80 feet in, you're grouting 80 feet.
What's the typical diameter for a bored well?
Most of ours are 24 to 36 inches.
Ours are 36 to 48, yeah. So we have areas in Illinois, though, where the only choice you have is a bored well.
Yeah.
So
we have areas with arsenic and such where homeowners have gone that route because they can't get away from the naturally occurring contaminants. So they'd rather, if they're going to have an issue, they'd rather it be total coliform that they can treat fairly easily.
With respect to the first well you discussed with only 3 inches of casing, what was the outcome from the well driller? How did they respond?
We ended up making them abandon that well. So at their cost, they had to abandon it and had to drill a new well.
The liners that are installed, do they go inside the existing casing?
Yes.
Whoa.
There you go.
Okay, can you lock that so nobody else can ask anything else? You can't. Great. Liners are all just go inside the existing casing to repair crack casing? Is this just a temporary fix?
No, it's a permanent fix.
How many wells does your program video in 1 year? I think you answered that. About
Yeah,
50?
I would say close to 100 a year between the two of us.
What percentage of permitted wells does that represent?
Where's that question now?
That's
It's quite a bit. I mean, again, we didn't start permitting until 2008, but we had just under 40 counties that already had local programs before the state said they had to. So there's some of our bigger counties had programs since the late 80s that required permitting. So I would say about half of the ones that we inspect with the well camera have been permitted at some point.
So how many other states offer similar services? You probably don't know.
I don't know that. I know
I don't
we've
either.
done comparisons with other states, and it seems like they're few and far between.
And after I found out about this program from Wilson, that's why he's here, because it's a really cool thing that a lot of people should probably do, because it's amazing what they learn from that. So.
Yeah.
Isn't there a risk of an unused but not formally decommissioned well being used as a conduit for contamination aquifer?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, we can only go off our regulations. So if I go out there and it's a well that's been so-called decommissioned, we have in our regulations the term temporary abandonment, which there is no time frame for that. So they can be considered temporarily abandoned. And if they meet all our setbacks and they're grouted, it's just like having an existing well or an irrigation well. I can't force them to abandon that well.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Stay seated.